So finally, Australia has a face-to-face conversation with the head of China. I'm not going to bag that, despite the fact I am not a fan of almost anyone that was in that room. It's good that leaders talk, but let's not pretend that the world changed because they talked. In fact, and I'll explain this in a second, this is all on China's terms. And now that China has just shown a little bit of leg, it's up to Australia to be good boys and girls. But can we also just be realistic about how low the expectations are when the media is on the side of a Prime Minister that they like? Now, despite the fact that this meeting didn't even produce a guaranteed promise of further meetings, the Prime Minister says it was a success, despite the fact that it was just 32 minutes long. And think about this. If it's even speaking time, that's what, 16 minutes each? Plus translators, so things can be heard in Chinese, then heard back in English. It means they spoke for about 7 or 8 minutes each, but apparently a success.
It was. It ended when overtime of when it was scheduled, and it was very constructive. The media were present for our opening remarks. The President then spoke, I spoke, and we had a dialogue and responded to each other's comments.
The most important part of what Anthony Albanese says happened in their meeting was that he says that President Xi had said that we had complementary economies. Some of the first words that came out of the Prime Minister's mouth was that the trade with China was the size of the United States and multiple countries combined. So the message that comes out of this is that Anthony Albanese has been told by China and understands that if you upset China, China can stuff your economy. So don't upset China. So no, did they sign away Tasmania to Beijing? No. Is the Belt and Road Initiative now the law of the land? Absolutely not. But watch this space, because with no promise of further conversations, what the Australian side of this will now do is say nothing. We'll never call them out, unless, of course, it's what the United States would like us to do to help them in their cause. What you are seeing here is the managing the relationship phase of dealing with China. Managing the relationship phase of China is when China can continue to have islands in the South China Sea, threaten the existence of Taiwan, fully retake back Hong Kong so there is no democracy there, decades before that was supposed to be the case. But because there's money on the table, we manage the relationship, which means you don't call any of that out. You definitely don't call them out for how a pandemic got out of control. And regardless of whether you are a lab leak or a bat market person, the fact remains the same. Millions of people died around the world and we lost 2 years of our lives. And China knew there was a problem because they cancelled domestic flights but kept the international ones going. But if you call them out on that, they punish you. Then your political opposition gets to say we need to normalise the relationship. And guess what the message is to the 1.2 million Australians of Chinese descent? Labor reset the relationship. Which means China gave us a meeting, China gave us nothing, Australia will stop standing up to China.